the see if we're gonna have anybody in the live chat, huh?
I wouldn't like. I actually didn't say much about it. So this is.
You never know. I bet you Mur shows up.
I put it in the YouTube channel, but I guess I forgot to post about it on the guild. So my omission there, my mistake.
Nah, I'm not.
So if we don't get anybody, blame me.
Oh no, people tend to listen to these as podcast recordings anyway. I've noticed, so I'm not too worried about it. This is easier for me to edit. I love the way we record these.
Yeah, it really puts everything right there. I just edited the Good Board Ugly episode yesterday, and I mean it's the same thing. So I can get an episode edited, like pretty quickly, just because the process is very fast to get all the audio. You don't have to like mix things and everything like that.
Yeah. And then if there's any audio problems, I know how I can just adjust the levels a bit. So it's great. Okay, let's get this going. I got my list. This is going to be awesome. Let's get this rolling.
All right. Welcome to the Longview Podcast, a podcast that takes a closer look at the games people play. Specifically today, we are talking about the Games of Essen 2017, and this recording is occurring in the days leading up to Essen 2018. I think tomorrow, Wednesday, maybe Tuesday, but I'm pretty sure they start on Wednesday with the actual Essen Spiel, the biggest board game-centric event in the world. Gen Con is a larger convention, but Essen Spiel Fair is just about board games. And whereas Gen Con started as an RPG convention that now includes a large contingent of board gamers, it still is not as large as the specifically game-focused Essen Spiel Fair, and that takes place in Essen, Germany. And one of these days, I'd really like to make it.
Oh boy, I'd love to too, man. Maybe we can just go up there together. Maybe it'll be our wish list, our bucket list.
There you go, man. That would be great. And you're hearing TC Reed, who's joining me, Joe Sallin. We are the co-hosts of the Longview Podcast. Normally, we talk about single games. We have guest hosts come on, talk about their favorite games. Well, today you're going to get kind of a snippets about all of the games that we have prepared, and also just all the games that we have looked at and followed over the years. So from other sources, you hear about them right as soon as they're coming out because they want to get that that fear of missing out, good old FOMO, YOLO, all that type of stuff, and they give you their first blush, and then they just move right on on to the next thing. Here at the Longview, we know that our listeners appreciate a more in-depth approach and something where time is the true tell of whether or not a game is of a higher caliber or not. So does it hold up after a year's worth? And you'll hear about 38 games on my list. I think, TC, you concentrated your list to specific games that you have a lot more to say. I have some very small comments about a lot of games, and I think you have larger comments about fewer games.
Well, yeah, this is one of my favorite episodes. This is one of my favorite yearly episodes to do because it's like I call this like the Ghosts of Essen Past, where everybody gets so wound up in the hype of what's coming out. Like, oh, hear this, and in fact, they're hyping games that may or may not be at Essen to sell. And then I always like to take a look back like at a year later. I always like doing this with Jeff and just seeing where it all settled, right? Where all the hype went, what actually, survived the hype, what kind of stuck out, what game people are still playing, what games they just got completely washed to the side for whatever various reasons. And, going into the Essens, I always have like a list of 5 or 6 games I specifically look at, and then I follow up with them, like if I played them, where they're at, what happened to them. Just games that I were interested in personally. I was looking over your list, and there's going to be quite a bit of overlap, and I'm curious if we're going to make it through all 38. But there's some good stuff here. But yeah, I just like discussing what happened and where we think these games are, and what our impressions are, and maybe look a little bit and see what other people thought, because I just like that. I like not like getting all cut up in that, but it's nice to take a deep breath and go and do something a little different. That's what I think I enjoy about it.
This is a nice change of pace episode. So it'll be, if you're getting lost throughout this episode, you'll have periodic moments to be able to catch your breath, because we'll switch gears and talk about a different game, and you can start fresh from that one. So you don't have to, follow every little bit of commentary to be able to pay attention. So hopefully this is something that our audience appreciates as well. But TC, I got to agree with you, man. I've been looking forward to this one because I like getting a chance to just kind of go a little bit off the rails and be able to talk about, a lot of games. And since I have a lot of games, why don't I kick it off here and I'll try to do just a dollop of games and then you take over.
Go for it. And I'll answer some commentary here as I see fit.
Sounds good. So this was the first appearance in Essen 2017 of the Deckscape series. Deckscape. That's like escape, except instead of an E, it's deck. The word deck, like a card deck. It's a single deck of cards. There's no rules to have to read. You just open this box. You look at the top card. It's in a specific order. Every card is like puzzles on one side. And if you flip it over, it gives you the answer on the other side. If you got it right, you go on. If you didn't get it right, you make a check mark and then go on. And you count how many check marks you get, which are bad. And you're trying to get a higher score. And that's, I think, usually calculated in terms of the amount of minutes that you took to finish the game. Overall, these Deckscape games are just a really easy entry point into the escape room in a deck game sort of style. And I really appreciate Test Time specifically, but also I thought The Fate of London was pretty darn good. Heist of Venice just came out, and I appreciated that. Enjoyed that one, though I did feel like they could have done more with the setting. So hopefully the upcoming one, which I believe is set in like El Dorado, will also be good. So Deckscape made its first appearance, and it's definitely it has earned a spot among my escape room games, which are ones that I do enjoy playing. This one being at the very, very low bar entry level, so I can play it with like non-gamers in my family.
Yeah, I've heard this one. I've heard you talk about this one. I didn't follow it at all, but it is a game I want to follow up on. I do like the idea of the easy rules, and that's something that Liam's right now. He's like 8. He's right at that transition. He's like, he likes his simple games, but wants to. We're not quite there yet. He's almost. And I was looking at these specifically as a jump up, but this is something that's really caught my attention. I completely missed this one. Yay, Joe, you got something I missed.
I think you'll like Test Time specifically. You should get the Test Time one because it has a little bit of nostalgia through the type of the back and forth time travel stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. So Test Time was where I would say to start, and I think that was one of the first ones or the first two that released. So Test Time is the one that I would say. Next up, Riverboat. Riverboat is from Michael. I think it's Michael Kiesling.
Yeah, Kiesling. That's a Kiesling game.
Yeah, who's famous for working with Wolfgang Kramer and doing some really great games there.
Riverboat.
So Riverboat specifically has the feeling of like a New Orleans plantation in a lot of its in its presentation, but the real mechanical driver is that you have a player board that you're like, it's your farm and you're sort of putting out these plots on it, and that's going to be dictated by cards that are drawn out of a deck in what feels to be like as close to bingo as you can get while still fitting into a Euro game very nicely with some cool just mechanisms that work well and nicely complement this central sort of bingo call number system that I've not seen done well in any other game, and it's executed here well in Riverboat.
Yeah, Kiesling's one of those designers I always give a pass on. I mean, I was like, if whatever game comes out that he has designed, I get my hands on or see, I give it a shot. And I played this one once, and I enjoyed it. I do agree with the bingo thing. The biggest thing that I was concerned about, that this was the year of what the heck's going to happen to Mayfair. Yeah, if I remember right. And I remember this going, is this game maybe going to come out? What's happening with Mayfair? The Catan's now like gone, spun off. They sold that. So I thought it was kind of a slight miracle this thing came out anyway, considering all the drama going on with the company. But when it did, we got it on the rental shelf and we played it. It's a solid little Kiesling game. I really enjoyed it. I think it's like
solid is a great word for it, I think.
Yeah. I think let's see what ended up at 1,124. That's about right. 7.53. That sounds about right for this game.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Average rating of 7.5. So I think it's worth a try. I don't know if it's going to be the perennial first thing you reach for, but anyway, that was Riverboat. So now this one I just like to mention, Cerebria: The Inside World. Was listed on Essen 2017, and it's still not released right now, and it's Essen 2018. I'm on the Kickstarter for this, and I still haven't got my game. From what I understand, they're supposed to have some copies available at Essen. But anyway, yeah, Cerebri has been in the works for a while, and it was like in the top 100 geek Buzz Games of Essen. So yeah.
I don't know anything about Cerebri. This is
By
new.
the people that made Anachrony and Tricarion. So
okay,
it's like
there we go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's more about like psychology though. It's like, imagine like Inside Out, that Pixar movie.
Oh yeah,
as a heavy board game. Imagined as a heavy board game.
Huh.
It's really beautiful visuals.
And it's still unreleased?
Still unreleased. But these visuals remind me of like a mixture of their previous visuals in Tricarion and Anachrony, but mixed with like a Salvador Dali style dreamlike world.
So this is the ongoing hype. This might be on the 2018 Essen, maybe.
Cool. Yeah, here you check back on the Essen the 2018 Essen next year for the update of the Cult of the Unreleased segment on Cerebri of the Inside World.
I'll make sure this is on the list for next year. Check. Okay, here we go.
Nice. And now London 2nd Edition, which I sadly have never played. I have London 1st Edition, which I really like, even though like there are some OP cards in that game. In that game, like there are some issues with like the omnibus is really tough. As you know, to weather. If an opponent gets that, you're just kind of out. And from what I understand, London 2nd Edition reduced the map to cards, but they work better that way from everything I've heard. And the game is beautiful. The box itself looks like a classic box. Reminds me of the original Acquire box, the one that has like that dude in a suit on it, you know? But anyway, that's I've not played it yet, but I'm really excited to try it. I really liked Study in Emerald 2nd Edition, so I'm thinking London 2nd Edition will be along lines of what I'm looking for.
Man. I love London 2nd Edition. I still have my 1st edition. I do have the 2nd edition. This is probably the way to do a reprint of a Martin Wallace game. They did get rid of the map and went to cards. You can play 2 players now. Everything's a lot. The artwork on the cards is fantastic. The rules are a little bit clearer. They made a little tweaks here and there, but I played this one quite a bit, and I have to say I've always liked London, but the 2nd edition really kicks it up. And it looks from the ranking here, this is like 557, 7.7. Now, if you didn't like 1st edition, the 2nd edition really isn't going to sell you on it. But for my money, this is probably one of the best executed tableau style games out there. And I love that. Then it's that poverty mechanic that just kicks it to the next level, where you're trying to manage your poverty cubes, and it's all depending on how much other poverty people have, and you just kind of, you're watching how other people play. So there's player interaction. It's good. It's solid.
Really monitor that ecosystem. It's
Cool. If you have not played it, play the 2nd edition. It's good.
It looks really cool. Next up, First Martians, Adventures on the Red Planet. So this is kind of hilarious because I've had this game now. I did the pre-order that Ignacy had online. And so I've owned this game now for a long time. I still haven't played it, nor do I even know how. And I've read the rules multiple times. I've also watched, I don't think the entirety of a rules video, but I've watched at least some of it. And it's just, nothing about it really seemed that striking or interesting. And from how much it's universally hated, it sounds like I'm not missing much. However, I just would like to reiterate what I've said before, that I think Ignacy, he kept on pushing everybody in Robinson Crusoe to not pay attention to the bottom half of the cards when you put an event in the deck. But that's like half the fun. It's like, hey, this is a mother bird. When we're eating eggs, when this card comes back up in the deck, it's going to be the mother bird coming back for revenge. Like that's awesome. But if you don't even know that until it happens, and you have no way to prepare for it. You don't know it's coming, and you don't have that sort of like feeling of doom coming up. You're just like, I don't know what it's going to be. It could be good, could be bad. Who cares? So I really think Ignacy has incorrectly gauged the things that people enjoy about his games. And I think that shows clearly in First Martians, which is the first of like 3 games that were originally set out of space, that are set in space for the first time in 2017, and did not, at least some of them did not get a really great reception specifically for the space theme. But that's First Martians.
Yeah, I haven't played this one, but what I have seen people play with this one, they really struggle with that rule book. I mean, I've seen a lot of people just want to light that thing on fire and just get really frustrated with it.
Robinson Crusoe already did that. Robinson Crusoe already had a crappy rule book, and then Ignacy made fun of himself in a graphic that showed that like the 2nd edition of Robinson Crusoe has a rule book that, unlike the 1st edition, actually teaches you the game. Like, come on, dude. If you know that and can recognize that, do the due diligence of making your rule book something that invites people into the game system and doesn't make it, this insurpassable block.
Yeah, I agree. I still want to give this one a shot because I still like Portal games. And I think we're going to be discussing another game. I know I saw this higher on your list that I think that the other game we're going to talk about suffered because of the bad reception this one got. But we'll get to that later because when this one people started playing, I mean, people were really looking forward to the first Martian. I knew a few people who were like hardcore Robinson Crusoe fans, and they were like, what just happened here? So, of course, when people say that, I'm like, dude, I want to play this game, right? So, but for what it's worth, yeah, I haven't tried it, but I've just seen people struggle with it.
Yeah. So same sort of thing here. It's still on my shelf. Still haven't played it. Anyway, first Martians. Moving up now, and after this one, TC, I'll have you go ahead and start yours.
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
John Company. Here's my take on John Company. All right, it's people that already know they're gonna like it. Don't listen to what I'm about to say. Seriously, just like turn the audio way down for like 10 seconds, because my thing about this is the best opportunities for you to score points depend on rolling for success. I hate that. Like, I just loathe that mechanic. And even though the rest of the game is a simulation game that I wouldn't be that interested in, but it relies on negotiation to sort of keep itself afloat, that's got an interesting setup to it. And that's something that I could see playing out. However, the inconsistencies between different versions of this game, like, I cannot imagine what it'd feel like playing with Monopoly Revoked. And just the way that, like, so much of this game is programmed. Like I said, it's a simulation game that feels like it just gives players windows of opportunity to negotiate and to essentially whine about how terrible all the rolls are going for them. And then ultimately, you score the most points because you rolled the right thing at the right time and retired enough people. And I don't care what you have to say about that being the unpredictability of the time period. I don't play games to be able to feel like I'm in a miserable situation and can't do anything about it. So, John Company just for me did not work because the biggest points and the most important part of the game is hope you roll a 5 or roll a 6 if you're in an executive position, because that's the only way you can score points. If you don't, your guy just keeps working and works himself to death, except that death occurs more like in the form of your game play and you getting 0 points.
Well, I did not realize this was an Essen 2017 game. This is probably, of all the games I own, this is the most polarizing one I have. And I hear you, Joe. I hear your complaints about it. I understand it. But man, for me, this game is just like riding a freaking roller coaster. We are all on together. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of that. And for all the complaints I hear about it, but I mean, like I said, I hear you. Once you get learn the second half of the game, which is where you create your own companies.
Yeah,
there is
because
you play this with people who are just playing like the first half. They're just going to just screw you over, get people out there, roll lucky, and just end the game. But if you play with the full game, there is a huge incentive to start your own company and start raking points in. And once you start to peek under the hood a little bit there's a lot more incentive to work together to get the company successful up to that point. Now, granted, I've only played the full game twice. We haven't gone back to it yet because this is one of those games that if you're not on blood pressure medication, you probably will end up being on it just because of the rolling and the negotiation. It is a very tense game. But if you're up for it and you like the theme, my wife likes anything that involves Britain, so that was just an in for it. But yeah, this is a game that is highly conditional. It has to be the right group of people. And you have to be comfortable with them, because if you don't, you could have the worst experience with your life on this thing. I know I did.
Yeah. So that was my take on 6 games. I'm going to try to do mine in waves of 6. And this opens up the door to you, TC.
Okay, so I just had like a few games. I'm going to try not to hit the games that we're going to be covering later. There's one here that I can cover right now. Now, I'm a huge fan of Pearl games. I love Troyes. I loved Tournay, the spinoff on that, which I think is a tremendously underrated game in its own right. Ginkopolis is fantastic. I want to go back. I know me and you have this Brussels bad experience, but we really want to go back and try it again.
I want to. I did not give that game what it deserved.
Yeah. But Pearl Games because I like Euro games with their specific Euro-centric companies that I follow. And last year, Pearl Games announced a game called Otis, Otys. I don't quite know how to pronounce
I
that.
think you're saying it right. I've almost bought this game just it looked interesting and unique, and it hid enough about it that I was like, the only way for me to find out is to buy it, but I still didn't.
Yeah, and so I was following it. It came out. Now I haven't played it yet, but I'm still interested. But looking at some of the feedback, it ended up falling. I think the fine that's rated right now like 1,447. So it kind of got left behind in the dust. It ended up with a final rating of 7.1. And the biggest complaints I've heard about is just multiplayer solitaire, and they call it, quote, the elevator game, unquote. So there's different levels. You're like diving. So I was like, after seeing and hearing them, like, I like a little bit more interaction in my game, but I have to remember it's a Pearl game. So I'm hoping that down the road they'll be discounted somewhere to pick it up, but it's still one I'm interested in. It's just the hype seems to have cooled quite a bit on this one. People aren't talking about it quite as much, but it's still something I'm really curious to try. And if anybody has any feedback on it, please let me know, because I'm still very interested simply because it's a Pearl game. That's Otis.
Very cool, man. No, I agree. Like the brand recognition, like Pearl Games, especially their work with like Twa. Oh man, like you're just talking some of the most fantastic design ever. And when I don't have all that many experiences, but the ones I do have are extremely positive, I feel the same way you do about a company.
Yeah. So that's mine. That's Otis.
All right. Well, that was nice and quick. I was expecting.
Sorry.
That means I'm really gonna book it, dude. I got a ton of games here. So Keeper is next up for me. Best smelling game I've ever owned. I really hated the gameplay though. Yeah, it just smelled sweet. Like I opened it, it smelled like they used like some sort of Febreze anti-odor paint. Like it just smelled so pleasant. I once painted a room with that stuff, and by the time I was done, I was wondering if I was like, getting high on the fumes or what, because I just wanted to keep smelling the paint. But anyway, Keeper. So it's worker placement in a very simple kind of aspect. I just am not that interested in the way that you're kind of placing out workers on 4 different boards, and at the end of the round, everybody will get a board, so you get all the workers back from one of them. I just found that like the way that it worked was unpredictable. It used a system of following that I didn't like. And then ultimately, the big selling points in this game turned out to be gimmicks that weren't worth their weight, weren't worth adding them into the game. The foldable player boards were just not that interesting. There wasn't that many differences between each one. And every single building in the game, which you were trying to build in what was kind of an interesting way, but they were all just like, oh, hey, get this resource. And if you get enough, you can get up to 4 points. Oh, and once you hit 4 points, you can't get any more. So focus on another building that's also just get up to 4 points. It just felt like there wasn't really any long-term stuff that I was doing in this game. It was all just like short-term check boxes, to-do list stuff.
I remember this when I was listening to a few heavy gamer podcasts, and they were like really building this thing up. They were like, is this something like your player board did something crazy, like he folded it or something. I remember exactly what they said. It's like, this is really neat, he's doing some good stuff. And then it came out and the thing just, it just crashed. And I didn't hear anything about it afterwards except for you. And you were like, yeah, I don't even bother with this thing.
Really negative on this one. Yeah, it looks cute and everything, but like it just didn't do anything that made me want to play it.
Yeah. I played like something of London. It was like a key game.
Key to the City of London.
And now I tried that. I've liked some other games in this series.
I like that one, dude. Yeah. Like to me, my take on the Richard Priest games, I have a really weird early experience with Cathedral. That's kind of like, it felt very old school Euro. It was almost like a game that was centered around the mechanism of blocking. Like just imagine if you played a game of Catan where your dice just rolled 7s. Meaning all you did was rob. It was interesting. So that game was like an old school Euro. And then I played Keyflower and loved it. But the more that I played it, the more that I found things I disliked about it, because I've got quite a few games of it under my belt now. Key to the City London cleaned up Keyflower, and I was like, hey guys, this is exactly what I was looking forward to. And everybody's like, no, the things we like about Keyflower are those weird, systems that aren't really as much trouble as they're worth. And that's, of course, me adding my opinion. But to me, when everybody hated Key to the City London, except for me, I was like, okay, well, whatever it is, this is the one I want to play. Nobody else wants to play it, so I guess I'll just move on.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Go talking about your next one, because that was a good story about this one.
Caverna, Cave versus Cave. I love this little 2-player game. Like, it to me is one of the most complete 2-player Uwe Rosenberg games right out of the box. Fixes things I hated about Caverna, improves systems I liked in Agricola, All Creatures Big and Small, and just all in all is a beautiful little tableau building and tableau activating package that I'm very excited to see expanded in what I believe is the new expansion coming out in Essen 2018 called like the Iron Age. I think it's an expansion to it.
Yeah, this was since I got Rosenburned, since you were like, you need to play Rosenberg games. You didn't play them. All you played is a Babel. You didn't play. So I'm like, okay. So I go to the game store, and this is the first. I was like, okay, this is Caverna, Cave versus Cave. I got to play this because Joseph and me and Chris have sat down with this one, and we really enjoyed this one. This was a surprise.
I was worried, man. I'm not like,
no, this was good. This was good because I was looking at. I didn't realize it was a 2-player variant of a game of I thought it was Caverna, right? I didn't realize that there's a separate Caverna game. So I was like, oh, this doesn't seem to be as bad as I've heard about. I'm like, oh, it's because this is a completely different game. Okay, I'm there. But this was a pleasant surprise. I was like, oh, I do need to check out more Rosenberg games. I like to put the tiles on. You got to like orient the caves, the walls, and then you have the tableau building. And yeah, when the expansion that's coming out for this. Yeah, even Carissa's like, yeah, we've got to get this thing. This is one of the few Rosenberg games I do own. This is one of the few Euros that Carissa does request semi-regularly.
Ooh, nice.
So yeah, this is on my list as well. This was my Rosenberg surprise. I really, really enjoyed it. And from what I understand, people seem to enjoy this one better than the original game it was based on.
Well, people like me, I think, TC, that you should give the base game of Caverna a try and figure out for yourself. Because if you're going into it with the hope that it's like Caverna, except got a few more systems that are interesting, or I'm sorry, I said Caverna, I meant to say Agricola. If you're looking for like Agricola with a few alternate systems, you're not going to find it. It's like it uses a very similar system, but it just overall, the theme of the game is like, that you can pretty much do what you want. It's more sandboxy, whereas Agricola is more like, you need everything, try to get it. Good luck. So it just depends on what you're expecting. And so I say try Caverna anyway. Even though I'm not a fan of it, it might be the one for you, dude.
It might be. I know, but it's because of this game, because of Caverna, Cave versus Cave, it will lead us to trying the other one. I promise you that, because we enjoyed that game so much.
I'm glad you tried it there, man. I'm glad you got in on that one. All right, next up on my list is Montana. I have very little to say about this aside from that, like I just talked about Riverboat, that one used bingo in a very interesting way. From everything I've heard, Montana uses a spinner.
What?
Yeah, like as in you flick a spinner that's an arrow, and where it lands is, like dictates what your choices are. And that's all. Wow,
okay. Well, okay. Spin it. That's intriguing right there. The fact that they're going to use some kind of old mechanic that people like dump all over. That's worth a look right there. And it's called Montana. So hey.
There you go, man. It's close to you. Yeah, you could drive there.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like, well, maybe the game is better than Montana going there. Who knows? We'll find out.
Yeah. Next up, This War of Mine, the board game. I got a weird relationship with this game. So I like Robinson Crusoe a lot. And to me, This War of Mine most closely reminds me of Robinson Crusoe. It's not the same game, but it gives me a lot of the same difficult, heavily strategic decisions. But it does so in a war setting, and it does so with a book of encounters that feels inexhaustible. I mean, you're talking like Bible paper. There's like thousands of small paragraphs that lead you on decision trees, and to me, there's just so much there. And then I like the game so much that I played the video game. I ended up feeling like I did not like the video game very much because it just felt like very repetitive and samey, and like you just kind of started over and tried to see how long you could last. And then I started to think of the board game in a negative way because I disliked the video game, and it's like, no, okay, I just need to spend some time away, come back to it later. So I still haven't come back to it yet, but I really enjoyed This War of Mine, the board game. The only criticism that I have is that the game is really just balanced so that there's always going to be 3-player characters. No matter how many players you want to play this game with, you're always playing with 3-player characters, and I kind of wish that there was more ways that the game balanced for different player counts. And I know that even the video game works the same way. You always have 3-player characters that you're balancing, but that's This War of Mine, which to me is a fantastic, superior to a video game board game, which is rare. I do play video games. I do enjoy video games, but this board game is better because it has the feeling of each encounter being vastly different and poignant and unique. And have you tried it, TC?
Yes, this one. This should come with like a huge disclaimer because it's a good game, but it is harsh. It is brutal. The story is telling is not pleasant by any stretch of the imagination. But because of that theme, it really elevates the game and really puts you in that scenario and makes you think about things that you normally wouldn't normally do. I've noticed that this is at 165 in the rank. I'm surprised it's not higher. I do agree that this is better than the video game. I do have the video game. I like it, but I just you have to go into this one knowing what you're getting into. But if you're prepared for that and willing to invest in the theme, you will find something that is unlike anything I have ever played in a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely agree, dude. Next up, the Fast Forward series. There's 3 games in this series by Freedom and Freeze. And this has been another notch in this is the reason that I wait to see what people think about Freedom and Freeze games before I touch them with a 10-foot pole. Because here we have a game that is playable right out of the box and without reading any rules. And that was kind of his goal in making these games. And I've heard that they can be interesting, but that as you go through the game, they just don't change all that much. You know, like the way that the game, as you continue to work through the continually build upon, like the game rules expand and build upon previous rules, but they never do so in a super compelling and interesting way. I felt like Fabled Fruit tried to do this and was extremely boring. And I'm worried that this would be the same. So I never played these, but they definitely made a splash. And Freedom and Freeze has been challenging himself to really turn the industry on its side by doing what seemed to be impossible design projects. So here he's got a game that you just play right out of the box. And I don't see people playing this anymore. Yeah, but I do know that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll say, yeah, this was a part of a trilogy. If they came out, did all 3 of these come out at the same time? I think they did.
Yeah, this is supposed to be the first one in the trilogy, but they all, I think, released at Essen 2017.
Yeah, and I heard complaints that the English translation was kind of iffy. Freedom and Freeze, I equal parts like his designs and don't like them because he's always pushing his designs in interesting directions. It's just sometimes I feel like that maybe he shouldn't have pushed them that way, right? It's like what was that one the one that was like a bazillion games in one? I don't remember what that thing was. 504, yeah. It was an interesting concept. It was executed very well, but in the end it was like, So
maybe focus on 3 of the games that are in this box and just make them more interesting and better instead of making them playable with a crappier game module.
And like I liked Fuji Flush, except like towards the end of the game, it just became the luck of the draw. So it's so funny. It's like
a very random game.
Yeah, I've heard several people say of Friedman Freeze that their favorite game of his is still Power Grid, like his one of his first games. But I'll be on the flip side, I can appreciate he's trying different things. And these were just ones I just like next,
I love Freedom and Freeze Friday. Like to me, that Friday is just a monumentally successful game. It actually has a theme, whereas this, Fear and the other games in the Fast Forward series don't even really try.
Yeah. Friday was a fantastic solo solitaire game too. So So like I said, if I don't ever play these, I don't feel like I'm going to be missing much out of my life. So
that's kind of where I'm at on it. Next up, Rogers of the Ganges. Now this one to me is almost like this little sleeper excellent game. Like it just didn't get the attention that I really think it should have got. To me, this is a Stone Age killer. Finally, a game that totally just murders Stone Age. You don't need to play Stone Age anymore. Don't need to ask me to play Stone Age anymore. And it does so in you're racing to get your money and your influence points tracks to meet. And so it's like this race game, which just to me, like propels everything. You got little elements of Carcassonne, a worker placement aspect that feels kind of like, because you use dice as well, Marco Polo, but at its core, it's a very simple worker placement game like Stone Age, only instead of rolling the dice for resources at the end of the round, you roll them as soon as you obtain the resources, and then you start making all of your future decisions based on what you've got in your hand, and you have a little bit of mitigation for what dice can be what. You have uses for lower number dices that can't be used with higher number dices. To me, it's a nice balance between you want to get in as many pips as you can to build out your player tableau, which is like a Carcassonne style tile laying, but you're also connecting to bonuses. To me, this game is just so awesome. Like it's one where like it's one that I'm just always willing to play. Like it absolutely starts at this place where I'm always interested in it, always willing to play. It's so smooth, so I'm very easy, willing to teach it to people. And I like the way that you get a build up and then a feeling of like running out an engine until you finally cross the finish line, just so barely. And you do it right before another player can, and then they feel all mad, and then they actually hate the game because the game has an abrupt ending and you've already won, and they don't even get to see theirs right out.
Yeah, this one is, I still see this one. This is definitely one of the games that came out of Essen last year that has definitely stayed. I still see this one getting played. I unfortunately have not had a chance to play it, but I have been invited and I've seen people play it, and I would agree from what I've seen. For me, what Murder Stone Age was my first Stone Age, right? Because I played that with Liam, so that's fine. I don't have to worry about my Stone Age anymore. But I liked what this was doing. I like the people seem to be having fun, and it still comes out. So I have tragically no excuse for not trying this one, and I am shamed. And you have put me in the spotlight, Joe, and I rightly deserve to be here.
Just give it a shot, man. Maybe you'll enjoy it, but it is that simple worker placement game. As Liam continues to grow and it learns more game systems, this would be, the time for this. It's definitely a little bit more than Stone Age itself. So, I'm not saying jump into this, but it looks really cool too. Like, to me, the visuals of this game, seeing Dennis Lohausen's artwork set in India is just really cool.
Yeah, so I'm going to
go ahead.
I'm going to do the next one because this one's on my list. And this is one I really want to talk about because this one, me and Joe, we're brothers on this one. We are Watch Your Games fan. We love Watch Your Games games, man. If someone has a Watch Your Games game out, I am playing it. And 2017, there's only one Watch Your Games game because we're still waiting for Brazil or however you want to pronounce that. Brazil. And we are, man, I am just like frothing. Been frothing for years for that game. So we had to get Loot Island, which came out in 2017. And this is so tragically underappreciated. This is a fantastic. This is as close to a straight out card game that Watch Your Games is going to make. I love the card play in this. I love the curse cubes in this because if you get 13 curse cubes, you are done. You're cursed out. You're just finished. So you're managing getting treasure because when you get treasure, you're gonna get curses. You gotta mitigate the curses you have. You're collecting set of things to maximize your points, but you're trying to manage because I got 9 curses, can afford to get more. You're laying cards out in numeric order, and you're putting your little disc out to claim them. And then the boat goes around clockwise, but you can reverse it to screw people over. It's cooperative, but not really. It did so many fantastic themes. It's got a great theme. Kate loves it, and she's a war gamer. And we love it. It's a great game. It just, God, what was this thing at? It's I got my list here. It's not rated that high. It's like ranked 3,261. The final rating of 6.6. That is a crime. That is a crime. And I don't know what happened. I think maybe people just got, they wanted that deep, heavy Euro from this game studio and didn't get it. But Joe, it's such a good game. That's so frustrating, right?
I have that game on myself and just still haven't played it. I'm very disappointed in myself. So this is like, you just absorbed all that negativity. Now this is my turn.
Okay. Yeah. So it was, it's fantastic. And if you like Watch Your Games and you just kind of wrote off Loot on it because it's like super cheap now. And it's like, remember, Asgard was that way too. People didn't like it and it was cheap. And then all of a sudden it took off and people wanted it because it was out of print. I guarantee you the same is going to happen with Loot Island if you don't watch yourself. So get it, play it, own it. If you like Watch Your Games, you need to do that. Support the company. Dang it.
Absolutely, dude. They are tragically underappreciated. And though I've not played this one, I'm really looking forward to everything that they come out with. I love, to me, their top game up to now is still Nippon.
Nippon, yes.
Dude, Nippon is getting a tiny little like expansion that's just some extra companies. And I'm really excited just, because it means there's going to be more Nippon.
Yeah, and and that's a toss-up because you've got like freaking what else is in there? You've got there's still the Pawn's good. I can't even think of the Japanese one with the We're Building the Wall. God, I can't even think tonight. Anyway, yeah, it's such a good set of games to make Nippon the top of that list. Those other ones are just as good. Zhangguo, there we go. Zhangguo, Madeira. God, such good pedigree, good games with those guys. Yeah. Okay, I'm done ranting. Proceed.
All right, so proceeding now, because that was Loot Island, right? By What's Your Games?
Uh-huh.
And now we're going to move on to one where I feel like I'm going to take my neck and place it carefully on the chopping block. I'm talking right now about Lisboa, and I feel like I'm right now I'm just holding a sacred cow by the rope, and just understand that I am an uninitiated, uneducated individual. Don't take my thoughts seriously on this. However, for me, the true test of time, Vital Lacerda game that still just drew me in, and for me, the uniqueness of the game systems, the tension that was present to me was very special, and that's in the game Kanban. Lisboa, like I've played it, and I thought, these are cool systems. I liked the way that you could draft cards. There was like always several cards to draft, and these cards would, you could always use a card for something else, but it just was it was always best for you to use it for, like specific uses. And then you've got like ways to build out the area of Lisboa as it's following like all these tragic, natural disasters. It just all was very mechanical to me, and that reminded me of Vital's games, like The Gallerist, and less so of how much I enjoyed Kanban. Not saying Kanban's perfect, but it's so far of the games by Vital, the one that really pulled me in and kept me there is Kanban. Unfortunately, not Lisboa.
Yeah, Lisboa, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with Lisboa. I can recognize the game for what it is. It's really good. It's something you can really sink your teeth into. The production on that is just out the roof. It's beautiful. It's nice. However, where you have Kanban, my favorite Lacerda game will always be CO2. I love that game. That game did so many different things. It was so unique. Of course, I'm a scientist. I work in a lab in science, so of course that's going to appeal to me. Loved everything CO2 did. But, Lacerda games always do something different. Someone in the comments brought up Vinos. I like Vinos. I even like the newer version of Vinos really well. So, but if you like that kind of stuff, it's good. And if I had more time to spend on Lisboa, I probably would. But every time I grab for a Lacerda game, my hand's always going CO2. So, that's my problem.
It also is just a game that I felt like, okay, that was fine, but now I want to play it with people that know what they're doing, and I want to really just be able to focus on the systems. And it just is, it takes so much to get to where I really am enjoying it, to where it gets to that point where it sings. And I find other games to be more reliable investments of my time.
Yeah.
Moving on up the list, Transatlantic, which I heard a few positive things, a few that wasn't what I was expecting type comments. And ultimately, this game by Matt Gertz does not seem to have had the same staying power as his hit Concordia. But who expected that anyway?
Yeah, this one really fell off. I would argue with you on this one. It's just, this one came out and people were like, Matt Gertz, oh, Concordia, yeah. And people put it and they're like, oh, okay. And that thing left the storm. And I have not seen Transatlantic played after the first week that thing came out. It's like, but the people who really wanted to play Transatlantic always bring back a Concordia. So I'm like, okay, well, guess I need to play Concordia anyway. So we'll play that instead.
It is. It's like just a staple game, and it's tough to compare it, but it's like when that actor has a role and it just defines their life. I feel like, for the longest time, Matt Gertz was that Rondell guy, and now he's the Concordia guy. So
Yep, I hear you on that.
Next up, Noosphere. It is the worker placement game by Uwe Rosenberg that debuted at Essen 2017. And it is a very simple approach to worker placement. 3 actions every single round. Take a spot. If it's got, some spots are only single use. Other ones have specific amounts of uses. But it's like, once it's full, it's blocked. The interesting part of this game is the interactions between building cards, of which there are 3 included decks and a 4th deck that'll be releasing at Essen 2018. Noosphere has just enough things interesting to it to where I still find the game compelling to be able to make combos out of buildings, and I can teach it to anybody. And it's a game that's all about fishing with goofy things about feeding elders and some other bits of it that make it appealing to me. So ultimately, Noosphere stayed in my collection, but it's like one of those barely a 7 games. And if I didn't see fishing and the Norwegian theme is being well executed and a world I want to set back into, I probably would unload this one because it just doesn't do anything mechanically all that special. But the buildings are interesting, and there are a bunch of them, and you can sort of play around with them. And that's why, to me, this game does have the legs to stay in my collection, Noosphere.
Yeah, I remember when they were breaking this out at game day, at a game night, and I was like, oh, I see you guys are playing Feast for Odin again. And I was wrong. But I was like, oh, it's another Rosenberg game. What's this one? It's fishing. Oh, okay. So I'll let you have this one, Joe. This one just really didn't grab my attention at all. It looked similar to like the other Rosenberg games I saw. And I was like, oh, look, there's Caverna Cave versus Cave. Guess we'll do that instead. So there you go.
Yeah.
Let me get to this one here. This one surprised me. This is the one that hit the list that I did. First of all, I didn't realize this was an Essen game, but apparently it was. And this is a game that my daughter likes that's giving Dungeon Pets a run for the money in terms of table time.
Oh.
And that is Dinosaur Island.
I still haven't played it, dude. I did the second Kickstarter, but I haven't played it. I suck.
Yeah, so that came out around Essen. I know that there's a Kickstarter before, and I think it actually shipped to backers before Essen, but it was part of some Essen list. And I was like, oh, what do you know? This one actually settled out as a ranking of 231 with a rating of 7.9. Now, this game is a very solid Euro game with a theme that will get just about anyone to play with it, because you're rolling dice and your dice are DNA and you're spending dice to build your dinosaurs and you're reaching into a bag for meeples and people are going to come visit your park. If you don't have security enough, then the dinosaurs are going to eat little meeples who are running around the park. It's like 3 games based in one drafting. There's victory conditions. It is a very solid medium to heavyweight Euro wrapped in an 80s theme with dinosaurs that sucks in anybody. And it is so. I know I throw around the fun word or like, but Kate still requests this thing. We played it twice. She still plays it. We love it. It's got enough variable. It's got lots of variability. Again, it's a Pandasaurus game, which I'm surprised that I was like, wow, I guess they did recover from the Kill Shakespeare fiasco. They actually did a really cool game here, and I've keep seeing it played. People talking about it. There's expansions for it. This one is definitely an Essen survivor as far as I'm concerned. It's still going strong.
A survivor.
Yeah, it's a survivor. It's dry as all.
Damn, man. Survived Essen 2017. It's still around a year later.
It's dry as all get out mechanically, but it's that theme. That theme is brilliant. You throw dinosaurs on a dry game, and you can get people to play that sucker who normally don't like dry Euro games, and it's such a blessing to have.
Yeah, so, dude, and that's exactly what Dungeon Pets is good for too. And it's like here it sounds like you're going to be doing more managing a park. Reminds me a little bit of Steam Park, which was just the way you described it. But like Steam Park was it was more of like imagine if you had Galaxy Trucker, except you were trying to roll dice rapidly instead of grab for pieces. And you know, as much joy as that can be, the other pieces in the game were much more interesting than the real-time dice elements. And
I just have to like, Amir's right. It's a very pink game. Maybe that's why Kate likes it so much. But it's like so good. Pink. It's so good. It's so entertaining. And
it's like roller skates.
It's always fun to watch someone play the game when they haven't quite got the security up and watch their dinosaurs eat the people visiting the park. It is such good for such a laugh. And it's and it keeps coming out, keeps getting played. And apparently it was an Essen game I wasn't aware of. So there you go, Dinosaur Island.
Very cool, man. Well, I'm going to follow that one up with a game that I just have a quick review of this. I have played it, but I'm just going to sum it up. And, you know, if this sounds interesting to you, like I would say don't think too much about how little attention I'm paying to this. Queen Domino, which actually improves upon King Domino by adding complexity. But the whole reason you're playing King Domino is because it's easy. So why? Yeah. So that's Queen Domino. Have you got a chance to play either King or Queen Domino?
I played King Domino. I didn't realize there was a Queen.
Yeah, well, Queen is the it's Queen Domino, which sounds so similar to King Domino that I would have thought it's just like a new skin where you can compare them and you can, or not compare them, but combine them and play with 8. That's what I figured. But no, this is like a whole separate game that has more in-depth systems, has actually a drafting line for a certain type of tile. There's some elements here that are like just make King Domino better. And to me, a pleasant game, an enjoyable game. But like, I was just really disappointed with King Domino, especially after it won the Spiel of last year. And more on that later, more on the Spiel des Jahres later. But like, that's Queen Domino, which I don't understand, like, because you play King Domino because it's simple. It's no longer simple. Why would you play Queen Domino? Oh, that's right, because you've already learned King Domino, so learning a couple new systems isn't all that bad. Yeah, I get it. Whatever. Yeah. It's fine. Seek it out if that sounds interesting to you. The next one on the list. Yeah, next. I wish that this next game, Santa Maria, I wish I'd played it because I've heard some really positive things. I've heard that it's a lighter dice rolling and management game, like a nice dice Euro game. And I really enjoy dice Euro games that are well thought out. I've already said how positive I feel about Rajas the Ganges. Other games I'm really big fan of is like Marco Polo and Trois and Lorenzo. Santa Maria, from what I understand, everybody's feedback on it has been fairly positive, and that it's not as heavy as some of these other games I talked about. So maybe it'll find this nice little entry-level place where this is one that I'm excited to play with, like teaching to newer players as well as playing in a more intense competitive experience.
Wow.
Santa Maria.
Never heard of this one. I'll have to check it out. I love dice games.
This one got some pretty positive, like I've not heard anybody say anything negative. I've heard people say that it's not all that special, but everybody that likes it is really positive. So next up is Heaven and Ale, which all I have is just a sad joke because I haven't played it. So
I haven't played this one either. Don't worry about it.
Knocking on heaven's door, and I'm totally not getting any ale. So sober and sad outside, knocking on heaven's door, not playing Heaven.
Yeah, we have one comment on here. Solid. There we go. Yeah. It's solid. Next.
Yeah. So yeah, we have a comment that says one player of it thought it was solid. Next up, Pixie Queen. Pixie Queen to me is nothing special. It's a run-of-the-mill Euro where the points are mostly negative. That's it. Like the whole pull of it is that the Pixie Queen is like just extremely mean, and so you get negative points, and whoever gets the least negative points wins. Fine. It doesn't make it anything new. It's all the systems here to me were not interesting or well implemented or done differently. Pixie Queen to me was a pretty big disappointment.
Well, all I know about this one is that you're one of our cohorts. Andy really likes this game and talks about it quite a bit. So I'll just defer to him and let him play it and move on.
Yeah. So next up here is Kitchen Rush. Now, Kitchen Rush is one of those games where you have to flip a sand timer and wait for that sand timer to get done because it's like your food is cooking. So my first experience with sand timer style games was this game called Time in Space. That's like the letter N. And Time in Space felt to me like all the joys of having everybody standing around microwaves waiting for their lunches to get done.
Okay.
And then you take that system, which was set in space, but felt like waiting on food to get done, and now you make it about actual food getting done. And so I'm like, this is like bringing up, like, this is making me have like cold sweats. I'm like scared of it. Like, no, I've already lived this. I've heard very positive things. I've heard very positive things about it, but I just personally have not got a chance to play it because I've got that weird hang up where I hated Time and Space so bad.
Well,
bad.
I could top you on this one. I actually own this game because it was gifted to me, and it sits there going, "You want to play me?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm scared. I don't like this mechanic." So I actually have it staring at me. It's like on my shelf because someone actually gave it to me. Here, we don't like it. You can have it. I'm like, "Oh, okay. You want to try it?" Like, I don't know. I'm scared. I don't know. It's scary. If someone just flat out gave it to me, I don't know if this is any good or not. So it's on my shelf. It taunts me daily, but I haven't had a chance to play it yet.
Mm-hmm. I will go ahead and just slap on another one here. Another bit of shame for me. I've heard great things about Columnah, and Columnah is now coming out in the United States with a much more wide release. So I anticipate this wide release because I've heard that it is an excellent, solid, dry Euro. Right up my alley.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Nice and dry.
And this is one of those where I see it on the shelf. It's got like this, got the cursive on it, and I'm just like, Huh.
Hmm.
Okay. Maybe I should ask Joe about this one.
Well,
Huh.
I will let you know. I've heard that it's like a really tight game, and actually, like hearing people describe it, kind of brings to mind Brussels. That Brussels 1893, the one that's another game of shame for me, just because I played it once and really didn't give it what it deserves, and need to play it more.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and hit the next one because this one is on my list. I'm really actually kind of excited to talk about this one. This one was the failed game that was like, oh, hype, 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 hype. Everyone's like, new failed. And I had just come off of playing the two ones that just got reprinted, the Dragon one and Year of the Dragon and Notre Dame, and I was starting to play Castles of Burgundy again because you recommended it and I just enjoyed it. I was like really looking forward to this one, and then Merlin comes out, and boy, people played it and were like, no. I mean, the biggest backlash I ever heard about a game was Merlin, and people were just crapping on it, saying don't play it. It's like the worst failed. I mean, it was the blowback on this game was amazing.
It's failed roll and move.
Yeah, and that's not
the bad part of it, dude. The roll and move's not the bad part.
What is the bad part?
The attackers, like that's to me, that's the unforgivable bad part, because if you get attackers all in one color, you get 3 attackers and there's 6 possible colors. So usually one person at the table gets 2 of one color and 1 of another, and then there are other people that are like, I've got all 3 colors. And it's kind of like, at the beginning of Castles of Burgundy, how you draw 3 random goods to give yourself some shipping to start with. It's kind of like that, only imagine that it's way, 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 way more important. And so getting the same color is just super OP.
Okay.
It's like because you can fight them together with one action and save yourself an action of which you only get 3 around. It's like getting somebody that extra action can be huge. So there's some balance issues with that system. And then just all the different parts of the game. It doesn't feel like other Feld games where you can make anticipatory moves and plan for the future. The elements of this game at its core are so much in constant change that you just shouldn't even wait to consider your turn until it's your turn and then sit there and AP thinking of the best move. It's just, to me, it's not, it sucked.
Yeah, the thing I'll always remember the most about this one is last year, Jeff was talking about it. He was just like, no. I mean, it was like just mentioning this game was like Catan to him, right? It was just the reaction it provoked was just wow. And I was going, wow, maybe I should look into this one. But again, it's a Queen's game, so who knows where it's at, if it's coming back, if it even exists anymore. Maybe I shouldn't even bother with it. But yeah, I remember this one is the blowback this game got from Essen last year. So this is on my list of games that just absolutely fell to earth as hard as Seafall.
But sometimes you just want to jump on that meteor and ride it all the way into the planet's surface.
Because I'm up for that.
All right, I'll take it back here, and we'll go out into space. Why not? For Pulsar 2849, another game I sadly never had a chance to play, but man, I keep seeing people, every time this game name comes up, everybody's like, oh, dude, I love the way they did variability. I love the way they did the dice selection. Everything about this game seems to have had a very positive reaction towards everybody that's played it. And I just recently saw Vladimir Suchi's he made a designer diary where he went into how this game was originally about building a kind of your traditional building a city in Europe, and then setting it out in outer space apparently was part of the design and development process that CGE undertook. But I just heard some really positive comments about Pulsar 2849, and I almost picked it up this last weekend, and I'm still even closer to picking it up right now. Have you got a chance to play this one, TC?
No, I have a game scheduled in 2 weeks for it because one of the guys I game with, this is right now his absolute favorite game. And this guy, I won't mention his name, but he's one of those guys who has a favorite game every month, right? It's like, oh, this is my new favorite game. This one has been his favorite game for a year now, right? Ever since this game came out. So I'm thinking this has got some legs on it that I need to check out. So I approached him. I was like, hey, is Pulsar 2849 still your favorite game? Because I'm getting ready to do a looking back at S. He's like, yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to play it before this recording, but from everything I hear and everything I've seen, this is again one of the standout games from Essen last year. This is still staying around, and people are still playing it and enjoying it quite a bit.
Very cool. Yeah, that's Pulsar 2849.
Oh, I can't wait for this next one.
The next one we talked about in our last episode of the Longview, and that was over Imperial Settlers, because this is the Imperial Settlers Goes to Outer Space game. You know, this is number 2 in the games that go from a Earth setting to an outer space setting and don't get super well received. Alien Artifacts, I've heard, has actually got some very positive qualities to it and tries to clean up some elements of the Imperial Settlers game that people that enjoyed the game but found flaws with it complained about. So trying to fix some of the complaints is part of the problem, or is part, I won't say part of the problem, but part of the project. But the other part of it is like setting it in outer space. Anytime that designers take existing intellectual properties that are like set in the world, the reason those worked is because they had like cute connections you could make. When you go to outer space, those aren't connections anymore. Those are just, you know, like imagined things. They're all imagined. So you don't have a familiarity to latch onto, nor does it help in making the rules more intuitive. And it feels just like they're more disconnected from reality. I think that's what Alien Artifacts suffered from, because even though I've seen some expansion decks available for it in the store, I'm just not hearing anything about it. And from what I understand, it's like an Imperial Settlers / 51st State style game that set out in space and had your unique factions like Imperial Settlers, but I think it tried to do more gameplay along the lines of the interactivity of 51st State. Anyway, I've not played it myself, but it did come up in our debate about Imperial Settlers and has not been a super well-received game. That's games, Alien Artifacts.
Yeah, this is another game that made my list as Alien Artifacts. This is a game that I was really looking forward to, really wanted to try, and I think this thing got shackled with the first Martian game, and it just disappeared with it. I think this probably suffered from the bad hype that game had. This is a game that came out, people were talking about it. It disappeared. I don't hear anybody talking about playing it. I hear more people playing 51st State and Imperial Settlers than I do people playing Alien Artifacts. So I haven't had a chance to play it. I don't know what happened to it. It was a game that I was really looking forward to get my hands on and trying out, but it just never happened. I don't know what happened with this one. I don't know if it was the fact that Portal Games suffered a bad year that year.
I think you're right that it got shackled together with that bad publicity from First Martians. And by the way, I am incorrect in saying that Alien Artifacts has factions. It is not faction deck specific. So more similar to 51st State than Imperial Settlers when it comes to that.
Yeah. And it may not be a bad game. It's just one I haven't played, and man, I still want to.
It needed like a whimsical, silly-looking Mario dude on the front cover that's like, you know, alien. Yeah. So he's like some goofy, silly, looks like he's about to, you know, he's like just roly-poly. Like if you shoved him backwards, he would just roll all the way back down the hill. That's Imperial Settlers, dude. It gets people it made it very accessible. And Alien Artifacts, when you look at it, it feels very much like, you know, I don't know. Like it doesn't pull you in. So that artwork is not,
So that's my take on it, and that made my list. It's one of those I need to play, but I don't know if I ever to. But hey, if anybody lives in the area here and wants me to play Alien Artifacts, I will gladly do it.
Well, I promise. I mean, I've got like looking here at what games are coming up. You're gonna get to the point where I've played everything real soon, or played mostly everything. But unfortunately, not there just yet. And this one's Baron Park, one of the few games whose English spelling utilizes the umlaut. So good luck typing that correctly. The Baron Park, to me, I'm really interested. This year they've got the upcoming Gingerbread House, which takes a tile laying game and makes it much more vertical, where you're always covering things up. Baron Park is more about making enclosures. And is a bear park a real thing? I have no idea, but it's so specific and strange. And unfortunately, when I went to try to buy this game, Mayfair was in its RIP never forget stage.
I played this one. I like it. And that's mainly because of the designer. See who it is. It is Phil Walker Harding. I like his designs. They're always real clean and pretty simple with some depth to it. Like Archaeology, the card game I really liked. Emotep, I really enjoy.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that one.
And now the Baron Park's a really nice tiling, and it's good. It's just, again, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, well, I have other games by this designer. I'm not sure how often this one hit the table. So again, I played it a few times and never really looked back to try it again. But I do like the designer and I like his games. It's just unfortunately, I think there's other games he's done that I prefer better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm listening to you there. I really still want to play it, and I do want to play Gingerbread House as well. So that's the one that's coming out at 2018. And keep your eyes on that one. Next up is another like Chimera Station. I remember seeing the Kickstarter run for Chimera Station. I remember being close to backing it because it's like the art of this game reminds me of Futurama, but it's about like 3 layered, like 3 tiers. Workers, like your workers always have 3 pieces, like a feet, a thorax, and a head or whatever. And you can add and interchange different pieces that make your workers better at different things. Like you have different sections that you can add. I heard nothing about this game. Is this because it's a hidden gem, or is there a good reason that no one ever talked about it? I have no idea.
I've never even heard of this one. But then again, it's not too surprising. It's a Tasty Minstrel game, and they've been pushing out so many games. It's easy to miss. In fact, there's another Tasty Minstrel game that came out that didn't quite make my list that I would have been curious to play that came out in Essen. That's Pioneer Days.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that one.
And that looks good. I've heard it's a good dice game. It's got something. But again, Tasty Minstrel games, they're putting out a game every second, it seems like. And if you miss out on getting it when it comes out, then you're probably not going to see it again. They've almost become the new Z-Man in a lot of ways. For that. Interesting.
Yeah, I would say if you get a chance while you're at Essen to take a look at Trade on the Tigris, that game, like I didn't think I would like a real-time trading game, but here in 2018 Essen, that to me is at least worth a play to see if it's up your alley, because I did find that I can teach that game very easily. It's made to run really smoothly with new players, and it's a great civilization game mixed with a real-time trading. To me, it's a game that works very well. And right up this list here, onto my next one, and I'll trade it off to you after this, TC. But I just would like to say Pandemic Legacy Season 2, it took the world by storm by making everybody look at the cover and be like, oh man, they're doing like Mad Max with the Pandemic Legacy. And at the time, there was no way I was playing this because I still hadn't even finished my Pandemic Legacy Season 1. But now I have, and I'm getting ready I've now read the rules twice, and I'm getting ready to hopefully start a campaign and finish the campaign of Pandemic Legacy Season 2 and actually be able to talk about it. TC, have you had a chance to?
Yes, we have actually started this one because we finished up our Season 1. Kate enjoyed wrapping up Season 1 so much that we got Season 2. Season 2 is different. There's several things I like about Legacy Season 2 and a few things that I think actually held it back because I think it's like 33. It didn't quite get the hype and the push that Season 1 did. And I think, I mean, the big, top 100, the big reason I think there's 2 reasons for that. One is that it's a different game. It's not Pandemic per se, where Pandemic Season 1 was pretty much base Pandemic with a bunch of crazy stuff. But this one, from the ground up, is a different game where you're having to supply things and things are getting off. And so it's different. Second of all, this game is absolutely 100% brutal. This is, wow, it is a very tough game to win. We have gotten a lot of losses on this thing, and it's kind of embarrassing because in Season 1, we didn't lose quite as much as we're losing in Season 2. But we're pushing through it. We still enjoy it. It's got this really cool post-apocalyptic theme, which I really enjoy. And, Joe, you are a character in the game. Because there's a character on there that I created that if you just had your hair longer, it still had the creepy Joe beard going on, just longer hair. So you're a character, and you'll be happy to know you're still alive. 4 games into it, I'm playing Joe, and you are still alive. So
wow. Well, hopefully I will be the character in your game that betrays you. Because that's who I was in my own game of Pandemic Legacy. Not to say that happens or anything, but be careful naming characters after people. They might betray you.
It was just my sad attempt to get you involved in the game since you live so far away. But we've been enjoying it. But you got to keep on top of this because it is hard and it is unforgiving. And like when you slip and things start going south a little bit, it's just like an avalanche. You're just like, oh my goodness. It's good though. And I wish it was a little higher on the rankings, but I can see why it's not as high. But it's still good. It's and like you said in your comments, it's a little bit like that Rising Tide where they're doing something different. I always appreciate when they do something different. For me, I know this probably won't count as an Essen 2017 game, but this game was so unique and so much fun that I had to throw it on here anyway. And that's Sidereal Confluence, trading and negotiation in the Elysian Quadrant. I don't quite know if it was an Essen race. I think it probably came out before that.
Some of the ones I said have been like Gen Con, and you know, they were like Caverna Cave versus Cave was available at Origins in very small quantities, but yeah.
This game just so came out of nowhere with the publisher WizKids. Like, what are they doing publishing something like this? The gameplay, which is crazy real-time negotiation, it is frantic. It is fun. It is with the crazy alien races that give you different powers. We finally got a hold on this. We played it once or twice, and I like this game. There is nothing quite like Sidereal Confluence.
Yeah.
It's holding at like 710. It's got like 7.9. I don't know if it's going to have much lasting power, but then the people who have played it have really enjoyed it. It's one of those games where once you play, you're like, I want to play this again. Yes, I do. So that's mine. Like, I don't know if it's quite an Essen game, but it came out of the same period, and I just need to promote it because more people need to play this thing.
It's one of those few games. It's like this huge, like it's a game that almost plays best at its like max player count, which I believe is like 9. And you just have so much variance between which races you play. Everybody plays a unique alien race, and you have a bunch of rules, and your entire game seems to function fundamentally differently from every other player. But it's really deep and heavy, and you can take it seriously. Like, you can go to the next level with it. And some of the pieces that made Sidereal Confluence work, I see being utilized in Trade in the Tigris. Not to say that they borrowed them, but like some incentives to trade, you know, goods that must be traded to be utilized. I like that aspect of it. I would say Trade in the Tigris maybe is like a lighter step into your trading and negotiation games, and you can try with Sidereal Confluence to set it in space, and I think that you're going to have a positive experience if you do it in that order.
Okay, so my next one, this is really funny, Joe. We're not going to talk to it till we get to your top one, because we actually had a weird thing where our number one's the same.
Well, I did this, TC, I kind of did this ordered based on the order of the geek buzz for this game. So like, it's not necessarily my ordering, but like, if you're talking about the game that is at number 1, man, go for it. You got it.
Well, we'll wait. We'll get to it. But I just want to let you know, I'll just keep going through the rest of yours, because I'm not going to have anything to talk about till we hit number 1.
All right. Well, dude, we got 9 games here to go, and I think I've played all but 1. So let's go ahead and kick it off with my number 1. I mean my number 1 of all time. Like, literally my number 1 of all time. Not my number 1 on this list or anything like that. I'm talking about Gaia Project, because if you can take my number 3 game of all time, which is barely even my number 3, it's just my number 3 because there was 2 other games that were just that good, and then you can take everything about it and mechanically improve it, set it in space, and give me alien powers that feel totally brand new and unique, and create a narrative about what that race would be valuing. Like, what is the system of their society that creates these, you know, it makes me start asking questions. But more than anything, it's about heavy Euro gameplay, and I'm talking about Gaia Project. Give me Gaia Project. Give me 3 other people that want to play it. Unfortunately, you can't go up to 5 anymore. Hey, you know what? People hated Terra Mystica 5 anyway. Gaia Project. It is absolutely one of the best games I've ever played. I mean, it's my number 1. It is, to me, it is the, I think it is the, like, from a development and balance perspective, most likely the one of the top accomplishments in core gamer board game design ever made. Gaia Project.
This is one I really want to try. I mean, the problem I'm having with this one is people are still playing Terra Mystic. I'm like, no, I want to try Gaia Project, guys. And there are a few things about this that have got my attention. First, it goes from fantasy to space. Check. Awesome. There. Got alien races. It's got a variable, because one of the big things I heard against Terra Mystica was that once you figure out the board, like somehow the board was imbalanced once you play it like a bazillion times. And this has a variable setup. It scales for different player counts. The only reason I haven't picked it up, it's $100 game. And I'm just like, and I got people in my household who I can't get sold on it. But this is a game where if we ever got together, Joe, this is one I want to sit down and play with you. Because this is one I absolutely want to play at some point.
Yeah, this is one where, like, if I'm going to evangelize any game, like, I need to go take this one and bring it into my bag, because it really is just that game that I feel like everybody needs to play it, because then they can go play it more, and then we can just get to the point where everybody in the world knows this game, so I can play it whenever with anyone.
Yeah, this is a shame. This is one of my shame games, because this one
would be a lifestyle game for me. Like, if it's a desert island game, I think it is my desert island game where I could, if I knew that I had 3 other players that were as passionately into it as me, I could just play this one.
See, the funny thing,
I would say there's lots of games like that, maybe.
The funny thing about this one is when I first played Terra Mystica several years ago, I remember playing, going, this game would be a better game if it was actually terraforming stuff in outer space. And when this was announced, I was like, yes!
The way that they made the Gaia Project aspect of the game, like, Gaia Project is the new way to terraform, and it's so unique, and it works differently, but it's got a much more dynamic, like, they played around a lot more with things that you can do to affect your own magic pool, like the power magic, the stuff that moved around between the 3 different bowls. The way that you can, like, manipulate that in this game is fantastic. The way that shipping matters, you've got a tech tree instead of the cult track. I mean, it just, everything is a marked improvement, strictly better. Unless you really like the cuteness of these associations, as we talked about before, the cuteness of the associations with existing fantasy tropes like dwarves that dig and, et cetera, et cetera. Unless that's the charm of Terra Mystica that's pulling you in, play Gaia Project. It's the better game.
Cool. Next.
Codenames Duet. It made Codenames work at a cooperative level, and I really enjoy a game system where I can, it feels like it's kind of like a crossword style activity, like a thesaurus vocabulary building activity. And Codenames Duet, to me, the way that it implements the Codenames formula, but it does so with, like, a double-sided card that has a specific, like, a certain, every single one of them follows certain rules. Like, every single one has 15 total cards that you need to get together with your opponent or with your partner in this game to win. And, you've got 9 of yours and 9 of theirs, but then there's 3 that overlap, 1 assassin card, and, there's just ones that are, like, the way that they designed it to me makes perfect sense when you've played it. If you've already played Codenames, you don't really have anything special. And they also added a campaign game that, to me, I don't really get why it's there. It doesn't seem all that special to me. And they give you, like, a huge pad where you really only need, like, a few pieces of paper, because you're going to be playing a lot of games to play that campaign. Anyway, Codenames Duet really worked.
Yeah, this is one of my I was wrong games. Because I remember when this was announced, I was like, how can they make Codenames a 2-player game? That's not going to work. Whatever. Whereas I played a lot of Codenames. This is one of my, if I had to play a party game, this is the one I always break out. At least it's decent. At least you can enjoy it. But I was like, there's no way a 2-player Codenames can work. It's not going to happen. And I played it. I was like, wow, I was wrong. This is actually a really good game. Yeah.
Like, you don't have to just play 2, but, like, when it comes down to it, the way that they made it with 2 players, like, you can play Codenames and be constant. Like, either you're answering or you're giving clues. You're never having any downtime in this unless somebody is in the process of thinking of a clue for you. And you can be sitting there thinking of your next clue. So it's like Codenames minus any downtime. Of course, cooperative, why not have that as an option? And it's well implemented. Next on the list, Anachrony. Anachrony, for me, and this, I mean, its overall rank is 66 in the top 100. So brace yourselves. I like almost every little bit about Anachrony. I like that there's worker placement with unique workers. You've got 3 different types of workers, and then a genius worker that is like the sort of like jack of all trades. I like that aspect of it. I like the way that you're building a tableau and then activating it. And like giving yourself bonuses. But the time travel aspect of the game, though it had elements that I did like, with depending on if you use some of the expansion type material, ultimately I found that the way that you were, like, warping resources to yourself and then ultimately getting points for it, it just, to me, like, it was a system that didn't have a reason to exist. Like, why am I getting points for warping myself resources, hanging on to those resources for 3 rounds, and then just being like, okay, here you go, back to yourself, meaning that I generated a resource so that I could then hand it to myself in the future. That's it. And I did not like that aspect of Anachrony. I liked the way that there was 4 different factions and they all played differently. But, like, so much of it was hinging on whether or not that time mechanism worked for me, and it just didn't. I found myself just getting points and not really doing anything more interesting than that. And for that reason, like Anachrony fell out of my, like I still have Tricarion, but I've passed up Anachrony. I have moved it along out of my collection.
A lot of people have moved on to Anachrony. I didn't get a chance to try this one because it moved on so fast. But for me, Tricarion was always going to be a difficult game to follow up on anyway, because that game was just so insanely unique and cool. But Anachrony does show that the designers still have legs and they can still design interesting games. I'm not quite sure why this one. I mean, it's at 66. People are still enjoying and playing it.
Yeah, that's super, super high, man. Like, I think that's that initial push, though. Like, this game was in the top 100 before people had even played it twice.
Yeah, that could be the case. But I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to play this one because I know that Tricarion expansion is coming out, and I still play Tricarion quite a bit.
Tricarion is really, in my opinion, it's more of what I'm looking for. Like to me, Tricarion is more special. The way that it's implemented, it reminds me more of like a Dungeon Lords where you have some ability to readjust. You know, it's not that you just program things. You know, you have to program things, but then you have choices to make as the round goes on. I like that aspect of it. I think that works better than just the straight worker placement. Put a dude down, take the stuff that you get or whatever. So
yeah, that's
an acronym. Moving along here to Agra. Agra is just this beautiful, huge package. All the pieces in this game, like it's got, I think you get 10 workers per color, and these pieces are so huge. It's almost just like just excess, a crime of excess. And you've got a board that like even has a stand so it's like at an angle, and every piece is like slanted so that you can put it on this board and it sits flush. But the whole game of Agra feels like a Vital Lacerda game, but it looks like a Michael Menzel simple Stone Age game. But here's what it does that's really unique, and that is that it has 12 different resources in the game that almost feel like you're having to tech up your resources. Like you have to tech up the ability to actually produce a resource for the first time by getting that building built. And that's one of the actions you can take. But once that's available, now you can like take actions to move all of your resources from the level 1 to the level 2 or level 3. And like these form different recipes that you can fulfill orders and sell to nobles down the river. Speaking of which, the orders part of the game, didn't like it. Not at all. Because the orders are all just like, you just get rewarded for having all of the orders in one column. So everybody just focuses on one column. And, you know, if you're playing a 4-player game, there's 3 columns of orders. So one player is getting skunked. And everybody else just focuses on their own order column. And then with a 3-player game, everybody just focuses on their own and doesn't interact. I don't like it. It's just simple recipe fulfilling. And every other part of this game to me feels like a much more interesting and less automatic decision. You know, like the way that you're adding to like you're selling these goods to nobles, which then are a card that become in front of you, and they're now an action that you can take or a special ability that you have. To me, that's very cool. And I wish that mattered more because you get so many points for orders that just these other elements of the game feel like kind of secondary parts. So to me, Agra, super hard to teach, feels like a Vital Lacerda game. And it has one element that I dislike quite strongly, and it is a huge source of point scoring in the game. I wish that there had been more of an emphasis on the drafting of cards because they become actions that you can use. But as it stands, Agra is a game that is just too much for me to hold on to and keep on teaching. It just became too unwieldy, though I do still appreciate much of what the game offers.
Yeah, this game's a hog, man. This is a sprawling game.
It's huge on the table.
Yeah, it's big. And I haven't had a chance to try it. Not really much interest in it. And Mur on here says, like, don't even bother unless you can play with 4 players. It needs to play at full player count or not at all in our experience. So there you go. I'm just going to use Mur here and say, you need to play with 4 players if you're going to play this game at all. But it's heavy. Oh my goodness, lifting this box up to look at it. But yeah, it's what does it end up being ranked at? Is it like almost 1,000, 959?
Yeah, it's around there, which makes sense to me because it's like, I mean, it's too heavy to really rise that quickly because it doesn't have a grab you, and it doesn't have that sort of simple part of the game that makes sense to keep you going, because even obtaining the most basic secondary, tertiary resources can be a grueling process of having to build a building first And building is one of those actions that, like, it is not the most rewarding way to play the game. Like, it rewards you economically, but not really in points. So, like, you can end up taking a building strategy in your first game because you're just trying to play with that and realize that it's not a viable end game strategy. You need to produce resources. You need to fulfill orders. And the order fulfilling, as I said, is my least favorite part of the game.
Okay, let's move on then.
Next up the list. Yeah, we're getting up there. Here is my game I have not played. I guess no, I got 2 games in my next 6. And this is Photosynthesis. I've seen this game played. I really dislike the type of pieces that are in this game. It's like the trying to look 3-dimensional by taking 2 2-dimensional pieces and then putting them together in sort of like a, like it's got like your sort of cross if you look from the top down. And that's what these trees are. They're trees that are like standy trees. And I've seen this game getting played a lot, and I've heard very positive things about it, though I've heard it is like more of a light family style game. Looks beautiful. And it's all about photosynthesis. Have you ever got a chance to try this one, TC?
Yes, I have. I like Blue Orange games quite a bit because they're really good family games. I'm trying to think of some other ones I've played by them, but in
New
general,
York 1901.
Yes,
I believe it's one.
1901. Yeah,
I think they had one called like Battle Sheep. Maybe that one. Maybe I'm thinking wrong, but it had like
and
these
they have like
plastic
some
sheep
smaller games too that I've played. I can't think of what they're off the top of my head. But anyway, I like them because I can always get the family around to play them, around the table to play them. I like photosynthesis because the sun goes around the board. You got these big trees. It's a cool science theme, so of course that's going to be right up my alley. It plays pretty quickly. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It's a very solid family game. And if you want to try something like a family game with a little bit with a different thing that you haven't seen, and there's trees and there's photosynthesis, man, give this one a shot. This one's a pretty fun little game. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Very cool. Next up on my list is a game that has been a huge impact, but not so much for me. I'm talking about Clans of Caledonia, and it has been a entry into like the heavier games for my younger brother who loves the Caledonia, the Scottish theme of, raising cattle, sheep, and distilling whiskey. And it is, to me, Clans of Caledonia is like the easy to teach Terra Mystica. And there are elements about it that make it worse in my eyes than Terra Mystica. But because of how easy it is to teach and how much more accessible it is, it certainly occupies a position in my collection that I can never see getting rid of it. It is not super balanced with its starting powers. Like, there needs to be more abilities to mess around with the balance of the player powers because some of them are just strictly worse than others. And some of them are strictly better than others. And, the amount of potential gain from some is just astronomical versus the capped, sad potential of many others. So with that, unfortunate, the draw of being the specific clan is really cool, but they're not super balanced. The milk one is super good. The one that has upgraded, that gives you discounts every time you build a secondary resource is just really crappy. It's terrible. Like the amount of total money you can save in the game is very low. But Clans of Caledonia is just super powerful as an entry level into Terra Mystica style games. It has very much a similar gameplay where you're playing out on the map. One thing I really do like about Clans of Caledonia that it has over Terra Mystica is that you can actually take actions to remove pieces from the board and free up those spots. So you've got to be careful when you do this because other players could like jump right into a spot that you really needed. And to me, that's a cool aspect that was never played around with Terra Mystica, but all the other elements of this game are pretty run-of-the-mill, recipe fulfilling that make a Terra Mystica style game work just fine and make it much more accessible. So Clans of Caledonia, you got a chance to play this one, TC?
No, and it's simply because I haven't had a chance to play Gaia Project. Now, sure as heck would play that over this one, but if I can't get Gaia Project played, no one wants to play Clans of Caledonia either. But yeah, this is one I've seen played, and I've heard various things about it. But again, if I'm going to take a jump into a game that's like it, I'm going to go into Gaia Project. Just so. Yeah. Now the next game.
Gaia Project, dude. Just go straight for that one. Do you want to do the next game on here?
The next game is a game that I really want to play with you.
Oh,
so take it away, Joe.
Fog of Love.
Fog of Love.
I'm creeped out. So this is a game that has pulled my wife into considering how game mechanisms can mimic the things that she really loves about entertainment. She loves romantic comedies. Fog of Love is the romantic comedy in board game form. Beautiful pieces, wonderfully artful design, has like nice like paisley, just the board itself like looks like it could be on the side of a purse, and people would like actually, you know, like people would buy that purse and carry that purse around. It just is really beautiful. And the exploration of different storylines and the way that you have a 2-player competitive game that somehow is also a role-playing game that works with 2, no DM, you have your own character, you create your own character, and it really does explore a lot of different aspects. To me, Fog of Love is just such a cool idea that is so well executed.
If we ever, this is going to be a game I want to live stream if we play together.
I feel like we'd have. Yeah, I would want to be doing this for charity, and for that charity to be making a lot of money, because this is certainly unsettling, TC. But
yeah, and they would make a lot of money, because I guarantee it's probably the most interesting thing to ever happen, ever recorded, because I've looked into it. Again, I am in a very unusual situation with my wife where she prefers the hardcore historical war games anyway. So there's really, I don't really have a significant other to try this with, which I would like to, because he's like, why do we want to play Fog of Love? We can play Fog of War, right? I'm like, well, you have a good point. Let's get play a war game. But this does seem a game that I've heard bring couples, that couples do enjoy playing. I just said I'm in a very unusual situation in my relationship, so I don't really think this one hitting. And the fact, I think the only way I'm going to play it is to play it with you. So yeah, so
Carissa just wouldn't be that captivated by it. You know what? Maybe she would like to try the paranormal expansion, the one where you're like kind of trying to play out a ghost story.
Now that might hit a chord right there. Yes.
Did she like Patrick Swayze in Ghost?
So let's not go there. Oh, Demi Moore. Oh, Whoopi Goldberg.
Okay. Next up on my list is my last shame. No, actually, man, I just keep on adding more to the shame, because that's me. Altiplano. I have now read the rulebook to Altiplano 2 days ago. Like, I literally read this rulebook on Sunday, and I still haven't played it. But everything about it looks to take what I disliked about Orleans that made me think that I'm broken because everybody else in the gaming community loves Orleans and I don't love it. Because of the buildings that are only one, first come, first serve, one available for everybody. And the other elements of the game just didn't captivate me and keep me coming back. And I really did not like the expansion that just was like, oh yeah, you know how you played this game where you got all the resources and found cool things to do with them? How about you just get all the resources and then give them away? And that's how they made the game cooperative. And I was like, nah, it's not that new or interesting or different. Like, that's just, a way to lazily make a competitive game cooperative. I found it that way. But anyway, Altiplano is set in the Incan Highlands, and that's a place that I'm interested in, but I still haven't played it. Have you played this one, TC?
Yes, this was actually a game me and Kate learned to play together. And what I thought was, I will agree, I do think this one is better than Orleans. I do. If I had to play between both of them, I'd rather play Altiplano, because you're moving your guy around, you're taking actions, and I'm a little iffy. I don't mind drawing chits out of a bag and stuff. It was fine, but Kate did not like this game at all. She started calling it alpaca butt. In fact, that's how we refer to the game now. And then because the little alpaca first player token just completely fell apart, so we moved it over and we'd stick its butt in each other's faces when it was our turn. But it is a solid game. Carissa did kind of want to play it because there was alpacas in it, but then when Kate said she didn't want to play it, it's like, no, we're never going to bother with it. But I've played it once or twice. I wouldn't mind playing again. I do think there's quite a bit to explore in it, and it does have a really cute theme. The artwork's really nice. It's just, unfortunately, it's not going to, this didn't hit with Kate, therefore it's not going to be in our collection. But if you like that style of game, I can see why you would like it. Yeah.
Well, that is not the last of the ones I've not played. Actually, this next one's also one I've not played, and that's Charterstone. So I've never played this competitive Euro legacy game, but TC, the competitive aspects of Seafall have taken Carissa entirely out of the game. So how does competitive work in a legacy format? I'm yet to see. I've heard people say that by the end of Charterstone, you're basically playing like a version of Ora et Labora, which is like a complicated turn this into this, this into this, this into this, and 30 points. So it's a very complicated resource management game, but the Charterstone formula is that it starts you extremely simple and then gets more complicated.
That sounds about right. That's what I've heard as well. In fact, when we finished Pandemic Season 1, I knew we was going to get Kate involved into a legacy game, and she had a choice of, between Charterstone or Season 2, and she just immediately went for Season 2. Although she was a little torn on this one because she likes chibi artwork. She really liked how cute it was. However, we kind of looked at it, and she thought, "Oh, I don't know. It seems like it thematically, I think you'd like Season 2 better." But I do think we will be hitting Charterstone at some point, just because I think that's going to be the next legacy game we play after we finish Season 2. Seafall we'll play for years. I don't even know if we'll finish that one up. That's just kind of a sick joke at this point because we just play it just for fun. But we will be hitting Charterstone probably, and I am curious to see how this works. Although some of the reviews I've heard on, it's like, I don't know, but it's Stonemaier. So we'll see.
Stonemaier is a tough sell for me specifically because I always feel like there should be somebody that's like less curmudgeonly. That's like, hey, play this with me. Hey, play this with me, and I'll be like, okay, sure. But like nobody ever does that, so it's just me, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna push that one. Like I'm not gonna be the one responsible for pushing that to a bunch of other versions of me that are like, what's this worth? Why should we try this? Because I feel like every Stonemaier game to me is like, this is fine. It works very solidly, but there's just nothing like, I don't know. I struggle to get really captivated by an experience. Now, I've not played with the most recent expansions to Scythe, and I think those ones might really push it into a headspace that has both the interesting turn-to-turn decisions together with an overarching strategy. And I do think Scythe is the closest one to like a me game out there, but I still feel like I want to leave it to other people to really push it, and there's nobody around me pushing it, so I just kind of live out of the sphere of influence of the games of Stonemaier.
It's
I love Between Two Cities, though.
I was about to say, Between Two Cities is one that my daughter loves playing.
But it's not a Deckscape design. He didn't design it. He designed all these other ones, but he did not design Between Two Cities. And they just came out with Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig, which is probably being touted as an Essen release. And that is one that I almost impulse bought on Sunday. So super, super close. Did not actually buy it.
And I think the expansion to Between Two Cities was an SN27 release. The Capitals.
And I have that, and it's a really good expansion.
And I would not play Between Two Cities without that expansion. I like Capitals quite a bit. In fact, when we played, we'd be like, oh, I played Between Two Cities, and we played it with Kay. I'm like, this is different than I remember. It's like, oh, it's because we got the expansion. I'm like, well, that's a really good expansion. Maybe that should have been on the list now that we talk about it.
Yeah, well, there are pieces that I would always play with, like the starting plats, that's your starting areas, and then the purple buildings, but I would not play with the districts and that stuff. There's like you might not even have played with the districts because it's just the way that the scoring works is so weird, and you have to sort of keep that in mind. And there's already so much other stuff going on, and it's just not natural to look for like, oh yeah, what's the district scoring? Oh crap. Oops. So I would definitely think that there are elements of the Between Two Cities expansion that like I would rather play with every game, but there are definitely pieces I don't always play with, or I wouldn't want to play with every game. And now TC.
Let's go. Here we go. This was the game that stood out for me at SN27. This game's still being played, and I like this game a lot. This is Azul. Azul is a Kiesling game that came out in 2017. It's a very solid game. It's an abstract game. Everybody in my family loves this one. People still playing this. I love the design of this. I love the mechanics of putting those big, nice, solid squares on. Uh-oh. Joe?
I'm here. TC, I'm here. Oh, no. What's going on? What's going on? TC, can you guys hear me in the chat? Can you guys still hear me? Can you chat peeps? David, Murr. Let's see. It looks like our friend that was joining us from Europe, maybe since it was 4 a.m., decided. Okay, so you can still hear me. All right, so this recording is still happening. Just TC whatever's going on, he must have sensed something. I just heard him saying, oh no, and then it was just gone. So maybe he saw that his laptop is out of batteries. I'm going to call it. I'm going to call this situation and say he saw that because he saw that little thing up in the corner of his screen that said, your laptop's about to die. And he starts going, oh no. And then he was gone before he could actually get it plugged in. That's what I'm saying. What do you guys, what's the story behind TC's absence? What are we going to say? That they announced, maybe they made an announcement for Arkham Horror new expansion and TC just had to be there. He's like, I'm sorry, Joe, I've got to go. Maybe there's a Munchkin collectible card game event going on at his local store. A game of Twilight Imperium 3 happening three counties away, but he has to be there for it. Any of these things, possibilities. I'm still going to go with my first hunch, which is that I think TC's battery ran out on his laptop. I think he records on laptop. So anyway, yeah. In Essen 2017, is there anything that's because Azul is the last game that we're covering here. I'm just assuming that TC's either going to take this and shred it up and put it at the beginning, or he's just going to leave it in here. And it'll be this nice little treat for everybody listening to just hear me like filling time. But right now I'm wondering, Essen 2017, what have we missed? Yeah. You get your Google reminders messed up. Actually, this whole time, okay, yep, he's got some technical issues. Now, technical issues could be any number of things, like a battery. But you never know. Other 2017 releases that I haven't covered yet. Maybe I can get one in here where he'll actually use the... There, he's back.
Sorry, weird technical issues. My computer.
Okay.
Like, okay, sorry. Azul.
I said, hey, hold on, TC. I had a theory on why you were gone. What was it?
My computer went to sleep. It went to low power mode.
Oh, it was low power mode. It was a battery issue.
Yeah.
Ear to ear, I said, I think his battery went dead because what else would give you warning? Most things would just drop you. Like if it was a connection issue, you'd just be gone.
Yeah. I was like, crap. So I went and got the battery charger. I'm like, boom, I'm back. Okay.
Hey, everybody. Yep. I know my co-host.
You know your co-host. Yeah. So what did I miss out on? What did I miss out on? I was talking about Azul.
Some real good stuff. Like, let's just put it like this: the fact that they're still listening means that they're dedicated. They're dedicated fans, and they deserve a nice finale here, TC. So give them what they deserve, and let's finish talking about Azul.
So Azul is a Kiesling game that is still being played, and it took me quite by surprise because I didn't think my family I didn't think they'd like abstract games at all. But this is the mechanics of this thing where you sprinkle those cubes out on circles and you grab them, and then how first player order is determined, and how you have to put everything out, and if you don't put stuff out and it falls down off your little board, then it's going to cost you negative victor points. You got to figure out, and then just taking your turn, and then waiting, like seeing what comes around and thinking, I want that one, and it's taking. You're like, crap, and you got to like wrap your brain around what's going on, and it plays really quick. And I think this was like the second game Mr. B came out with, because I know the first one was Century Spice Road.
Plan B.
Not
yeah. Mr. Bean.
Mr. B. It's B. I know there's a B in there somewhere. And I was like really lukewarm on Century Spice Road. I was like, take it or leave it. And so I was like really hesitant on Azul. And then everybody started talking about it, and the hype started building up. And then the hype persisted. And and I think this might end up being an evergreen game. I mean, this is a game that's going to keep selling. And I'm not like I said, I'm a war gamer. I like conflict games by nature, but I can recognize when a good solid Euro comes out. And I think this might be one of Kiesling's top designs, to be honest.
Dude, this is not just one of Kiesling's top designs. This is one of those games that somehow taps into a place that I feel like is subconsciously present in everybody, no matter if you identify as a gamer, if you play games but don't identify as one, or if you've never played a game in your life. I feel like if you play Azul, like there's immediately going to be things that you latch onto that are just like almost universal truths of gaming that I can't mention by name because I just don't have the vocabulary possible to be able to do it. But Azul nails that place. It does so in such a simple way, and it does so with all these pieces that don't feel like they should add up to what they actually do. I played Azul again on Sunday. It's one of those games where I can just suggest it, and it's to the point now where everybody in our group knows how to play it, and everybody's like, Yeah, that would be a great way to end the night. 20 minutes, and we get to play like this really intense, like, oh, I blocked you for that, and you blocked me for that, and then you're just collectively drafting the pieces, and the pieces are just like it just functions so well. It is the best game it is the best board game bag ever to me. Like it is beautiful. It is also comfortable to reach in, and it has just the right like fastening at the top. It has those strings where you can pull it in both directions, and it stays like that without all the pieces going everywhere. It's so easy to play, easy to get out, easy to set up, easy to teach, and has, like you said, evergreen. It is the definition of takes a minute to learn and a lifetime to master. Now, it is what I always want when somebody starts hyping a game like Century Spice Road, like you mentioned, or Splendor. Any of these games, like I end up playing them, and there's always things that I'm like, yeah, the randomness of this just isn't there. But like, yes, there's randomness in the game of Azul, but it's every bit of it is like player dependent. Like once the round sets up, all the players' actions are what's affecting the future of your possibilities, and that's what makes it so compelling.
Yeah, when we were talking, immediately when I knew we were going to talk about Essen 2017 games, this was just at the top of the list automatically. There was just no question in my mind. And it's one of those games, like you said, it's like it's always impressive to me when a game can take simple game mechanics and then there's a depth of gameplay that comes after you learn it. So it's easy to teach, but there's a lot to explore. And those type of games, like Dominion did it, I can name a few others. It's when that formula hits and it hits well that a game sticks around, and this one does it. It's like, and I wouldn't even call it when I saw this when the hype came out, I'm like, really, a little cube game with yeah, interesting, yeah, whatever. But man, you start playing it and just the player interaction, it syncs up. Everybody's engaged while they're playing. Everybody's paying attention. No one's really bored, and it plays in a reasonable amount of time. And in fact, when we played it the first time, I think we played like 2 or 3 games of this straight in a row. We were just so taken with this thing.
Yeah, it's like that's what I've done too. Like every time I've played this game, it's rare that it goes back in the box right away. It usually is like, if it's at all early in the game night, it's like it just keeps on going. It just, to me, it's always going to entertain me. I do not foresee a game of Azul that doesn't, that's just sucks. And I don't think I've ever heard of anybody playing Azul and being like, I had a bad game of it. Yeah. Like everything about it is. Yeah,
you could say you played it badly, but
yeah, you can suck at it, but I've never heard people like just be like, oh no, that game was just the game itself just didn't work that time. I don't understand it. I don't understand why.
That's weird, isn't it?
So well, yeah, and everybody loves it. So it's weird when the Spiel des Jahres gets announced, as it has been, and the winner is a game that nobody gripes about.
Yeah, I was about to
nobody's winning. Everybody's like, oh, it's Azul? Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, this thing rocketed. It's like at 37 on the ranking with the aggregate at 7.99 rating. That's a strong game. That is a very strong game. And I normally don't like dry Euros or abstracts, but this one, I can't argue with it because I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun.
That was real fun, man. That was a good. We talked about a lot of games, and I tried to pick the brains of the guys that were here just to see if there was any games that we omitted. There was an expansion to Concordia, so even though I jokingly mentioned that Transatlantic is no Concordia, Matt Gertz is still supporting Concordia, and this time it was the Egyptus Crete. I think it was Egypt and Crete were the two expansion maps, and I've heard positive things about that because everybody loves and plays and is always willing to play Concordia. It's another one of those evergreen titles. Mm-hmm. And so there was a new expansion for that. It looks like in Essen 2018, keep your eyes on those expansions because I have been most interested in expansion games. And if I could say one publisher that was putting out games that I'm most interested in, like the most games I'm interested in and the highest percentage of games that they're releasing versus games I'm interested in from a game company that releases, 5+ games is Lookout Games. I'm very excited to play the Isle of Skye Druids expansion. I believe the Isle of Skye Journeyman expansion was sometime around this, and I didn't mention that, but that game really changes Isle of Skye, makes it into a much heavier game, but somehow it still works, which is impressive from a design perspective. I don't know if it's something that you want if you like Isle of Skye, because it's like taking a light game and making it a medium game. And I don't know if I agree with that wholly. But it's still, to me, I enjoyed the game. I'm just not sure that I always want to play Isle of Skye that way. It makes it so that it doesn't really fit into the Isle of Skye niche that I have for it in my gaming, whatever repertoire.
Repertoire. Yeah, I think the fact that we missed the Between Two Cities expansion. Now, I'm sure there are some other expansions in there we didn't even think about. For 2017 Essen.
There certainly were, and because most of mine were focused on games and not expansions, so we didn't cover the expansions. Just in general, I'm usually a pretty big fan of expansions. However, I think maybe I'm trying to think. I think that maybe the Voyages of Marco Polo expansion had been released around this time, and that was not an expansion that I liked. Like, it's strange, but to compare that to a game that just got released, the Houses of the Renaissance for Lorenzo El Magnifico. Voyages of Marco Polo is like one of my top games. The expansion had elements I liked, but overall, I don't like the way that it loosens the game. It just does not feel as compelling when you play with those expansion pieces. I do like the role selection elements, though. I think those can be implemented pretty cool. Houses of the Renaissance takes a game I'm not that excited about and makes it amazing by comparison. So anyway, I'm just going to keep on reviewing things, TC, if you don't end this, dude.
I'll just say my 2017, the reason that hit me because I was too busy being Twilight Imperium 4th edition. Yeah, that one that came out in 2017.
Yeah, I remember that, dude.
Yep. Okay, well, let's wrap this up. Thank you very much, Joe. This is one of my favorite yearly episodes. We got some really cool stuff lined up the next few episodes for the long view, so be sure to stay tuned in for that. And have a great gaming week, month, whatever.
Yeah, with the long view, it's kind of tough, is like, what's our release schedule? Have a great 2 weeks, I guess.
2 weeks, have a great gaming thing.
Have a great fortnight.
Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah. Meanwhile, I'm gonna see if my Fallout 76 beta is ready to play. Yeah. So thank you so much, Joe. I really enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.